Let's bring in Claire Paquelin, our correspondent there, who's been watching over the last few hours that coach after coach arrive. Claire, good to talk to you, good to see you. Bring us up to date with what you're seeing there.
Where I'm standing now, Gavin, just a few hours ago was packed full of people. The building behind me, a municipal building here in the centre of Ramallah. Now that is where the families of the Palestinian prisoners, around about 80 of them who were released here in Ramallah, that's where the families were waiting for them. I stood and watched as we saw two buses full of these Palestinian prisoners who'd just been released arrive here. There were family members, there were members of the Palestinian Authority's security services, there was members of the Red Crescent as well, and of course lots of press too. And it was an atmosphere, I would say, of contained joy. Of course, families are thrilled to see their loved ones again, but the families we've been speaking to say they've been under strict orders. They've been warned by Israeli security services not to celebrate, not to hold any parties, certainly not to celebrate in the street the return of their loved ones. The Israelis would find that very distasteful and disrespectful, because the group of the prisoners who arrived here, the 80 or so who arrived here in Ramallah a few hours ago, they are among that 250 high-security Palestinian prisoners that Israel agreed to release as part of this deal, many of them serving life sentences for having prepared or in some cases carried out deadly attacks against Israelis. And so the Israeli security services were very clear with Palestinians here in the occupied West Bank that they are not allowed, and they could risk arrest if they celebrate the return of their relatives.
Claire, stay with us. I want to bring Noga in as well while you're talking, because we've got some developing news that Noga was referring to just a short while ago. Noga, you were talking about the problems with the release of the bodies of those that have been held captives. We're now hearing from the Hamas armed wing, which says here they will, according to Reuters, they will hand over the bodies of 4 hostages later today, as you were saying.
Right, that's the reason that the Forum of Families of Hostages has lodged a complaint, and that's the reason that there are serious negotiations right now underway that kind of scrambled together to try and prevent Israel itself lodging a complaint. I don't know with whom, because this board of peace that Donald Trump speaks about being the overseeing force of all this is not yet in place. And so if Israel ends up lodging a complaint and claiming that this is a serious violation of the accord, it would have to lodge its complaint with Qatar or with Egypt, who are very busy in the summit right now. It's a complicated situation. This does not follow, in fact, what the accord stated, but we have to wait and see it'll go. And I just want to add about the disarmament and leaving power in Gaza. Again, this is a crucial part of the agreement, and there is no enforcement mechanism right now. So we are at a bit of a precipice in terms of all of these stumbling blocks.
It's also, Noga, when you're looking at the details of the peace plan, it's fascinating to know, first of all, that this is Hamas as an entity. On the one level, you know, we had this Trump peace plan a year ago, well, a few months ago now, which suggested that Gazans might have to leave the territory. He was accused of ethnic cleansing there. But the latest talks, Hamas saying thank you, Mr. Trump, explicitly saying that they were seeing this as going the right way. How do you see that from the contacts that you've got on the Gaza side as well, with how it's playing that?
I think two things. I think, for one, the giving a compliment doesn't necessarily imply that much. And I think that Hamas was not given much of a choice by Qatar. For Qatar, it was a supremely important matter to repair its ties to the United States after October 7, and they were willing to exert very significant, influence on Hamas to get there. But it doesn't mean we are at the very end of all these problems yet. The White House also exerted very significant pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu. There was a pathway already for this agreement, for a ceasefire, and Donald Trump decided to call it the end of the war and to say, I'm putting my foot down. there is a chance it may hold, but we don't yet have a mechanism in force. What Hamas has accepted, which is quite significant, is for those members of the Hamas terror organization who remain in Gaza to disarm. And those who want to leave, who choose to exile themselves, basically have been granted lifelong immunity in Qatar by this surprising security pact that Donald Trump announced last week between the United States and Qatar. Israel is completely prohibited from trying to attack there again. There's no other country, I think, that would pursue them. And so basically they have two places to go now, either Ankara or Doha, where they can be safe lifelong.
Noga, stay with us. Claire, just listening to that, I'm interested on the conversations you're having. Twofold, really. One is how many people have some sense of Palestinians of respect, perhaps that's the wrong word, appreciation for President Trump, what that relationship is like in terms of their thoughts towards him, for those you've spoken to. And also just the idea that Marwan Barghouti, this figure that some call Palestine's Nelson Mandela, in prison for 5 counts of murder, how often his name comes up, that people want him to be released from prison?
Well, certainly Hamas wanted Marwan Barghouti's name to be on the list of the Palestinian prisoners released today. Even though Marwan Barghouti is from Fatah, so the other side of Palestinian politics, Hamas wanted his name on there because he is seen by many Palestinians and beyond as a figure who could unite both sides of Palestinian politics. But no, his name was not on that list. Israel vetoed that. When it comes to Trump, I would say that many people who I've been speaking to here would be very clear is that they are looking to the next step now. What does that recognition of the state of Palestine mean? France and several other countries recognized Palestine at the UN General Assembly a few weeks ago. What does a two-state solution mean? What does that actually mean on the map? Here in the occupied West Bank, people are very focused on that, as we're seeing an increase in violence from extremist settler groups. People here are really interested in knowing what's the next step going to be.
Thank you, Claire. Claire Pakalan in Ramallah. We'll come back to you shortly. Noga, one thing that strikes me is the fact that you and I have spoken for the course of the past 2 years. We've seen the timer in Hostages Square behind you constantly ticking. The idea that was going to be taken down. This was the moment the hostages were taken. The timer started, how long they've been away, people wearing yellow ribbons. But given the complications you've just mentioned with those hostages' bodies, what's happening with that? What happens with Hostages Square?
Well, that's a very good question. My understanding from talking with people here is that the Forum of Families wants to keep Hostages Square going until the very last hostage is back. But I think it's going to be a problem because the cohesion among these families is unlikely to hold as the families of the 20 hostages who are back become, their priority now will be the recuperation of their loved ones. It's a very long convalescence. We know that it can take months. So I don't know, but there is an insistence, as we heard from Efrat Mazikawa earlier, that the struggle will not end until they're all home, including the dead. We will have to see. I think the Netanyahu government is going to exert quite a bit of pressure to end what they consider this offensive protest. But the mayor of Tel Aviv is on the side of the family, so we're going to just have to wait it out.
Noga, always fantastic to talk to you. A sterling job non-stop. Noga Tarnopolsky, our correspondent in Tel Aviv. Let's have a look at some of the most striking moments a few hours ago today, a day that many families, many people around the world feared would never happen. This is the release, the moment that hostages returned to their families.
We start healing and start back to normal. And it's really important. It took 2 years, too long, but now it's the time to return to normal life.
After 2 years of very grave darkness in my heart, I finally feel that they came back.
We've been waiting for it for so long. Our hearts were wounded And now I couldn't believe. I thought they will be dead in captivity, but they're alive and they're coming home, and the war is over. Also very important.